Some legends refuse to die, not because people continue telling them, but because something continues creating them. For centuries, the Isle of Man has carried stories about the hidden people, the Mooinjer Veggey, the little people, a mysterious race said to live alongside humanity, beneath the hills, within ancient mounds, inside forgotten places where few people dared venture alone. Most people dismissed the stories as folklore, fairy tales, superstition, a way for our ancestors to explain strange sounds in the night or lights seen across lonely hillsides. But the deeper I looked into the history of the island, the more I began to wonder whether those stories had been misunderstood. Because the oldest accounts weren't describing fantasy, they were describing encounters, and encounters leave evidence. My investigation began with a disappearance. Thomas Neen was a local historian who had spent years researching Old Manx folklore. Unlike most researchers, Neen wasn't interested in collecting stories. He wanted to know where those stories came from. Months before he vanished, he began tracing witness accounts across the island. Reports separated by decades, sometimes centuries, different locations, different people. Yet the same details appeared again and again. Music heard where nobody stood, lights moving beneath the earth, strangers seen watching from hillsides before disappearing without a trace. Then Neen found something. His final email to a colleague contained only one sentence. The stories were never about fairies. I found the entrances. 3 days later, he disappeared. His vehicle was discovered parked beside an isolated hillside. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints, no evidence that anyone had been there besides him. The investigation went nowhere. The case was eventually closed. Most assumed he had suffered an accident somewhere in the surrounding countryside, but something about the case felt wrong. So I started following the trail he had left behind. Neen's research had been boxed away after his disappearance. Thousands of notes, old maps, photographs, newspaper cuttings, handwritten witness statements. The deeper I dug, the stranger the picture became. One phrase appeared repeatedly throughout his journals, written in different colors, different dates, repeated so many times it almost seemed obsessive. They are not beneath us. We are above them. At first, I assumed it was symbolic, a poetic reference to folklore. Then I discovered the locations he had marked: ancient mounds, burial sites, remote valleys, forgotten hillsides, places associated with hidden people's stories stretching back hundreds of years. And nearly all of them shared something unusual: reports of strange lights, the kind that moved, the kind that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. I began visiting those locations. At first I found nothing, only silence, wind, ancient stones, the usual feeling of isolation that comes with standing in places most people rarely visit. Then the music started. It happened during my third night in the hills. A faint violin, distant, almost lost in the wind. I assumed someone was nearby, perhaps another walker, maybe a farmer, but the sound moved. Each time I approached, it drifted further away, always just beyond reach. I followed it for nearly an hour. The deeper I went into the valley, the quieter everything else became. The wind faded. The birds stopped. Even my own footsteps seemed strangely muted. Then I saw the lights, small points of pale gold moving beneath a hillside. Not above it, beneath it. At first, I thought I was seeing reflections, perhaps vehicle headlights from a distant road, but there were no roads nearby. The lights moved with purpose, almost as if Something was carrying them through tunnels hidden below the earth. The violin stopped. The silence that followed felt unnatural. Then I noticed an opening among a cluster of ancient stones, a narrow entrance concealed by shadow. I checked my maps. Nothing. No cave system, no recorded tunnel, no mention of any structure in that location. Yet the opening existed, and someone had clearly been using it. I entered. The tunnel descended immediately. Its walls were smooth, far too smooth. Not natural stone, not erosion, not mining. Something had built this place. Something long before modern history. The further I descended, the stranger the tunnel became. No moisture, no debris, no signs of collapse. The structure looked ancient, yet somehow untouched by time. The silence deepened, until it felt like the entire world had stopped breathing. Then I saw movement. A figure standing ahead, tall, motionless, watching. When I raised my torch, it vanished. Moments later, I saw another, then another, always at the edge of the light. Never close enough to identify, never fully visible, only watching, waiting. The tunnel continued descending. Eventually it opened into something impossible. A chamber, vast beyond reason, far larger than should have been possible beneath the Isle of Mann. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. Ancient stone pillars stretched into the shadows, and everywhere I looked, I saw lights, thousands of them. At first, I thought they were reflections. Then they blinked, eyes, hundreds, perhaps thousands, watching from the darkness. I realized then that I wasn't alone. The figures emerged slowly, not tiny, not child-sized, not anything like the stories. Tall silhouettes, ancient shapes, neither fully human nor entirely unfamiliar. For centuries, people had called them the little people. But standing there, I understood how legends become distorted. Nobody had ever seen them clearly, only glimpses, shadows, distant movements, enough for the imagination to fill the gaps. Then, a voice entered my mind, not spoken aloud, not heard through my ears, felt. You carry the mark. Instinctively, my hand moved to the scar on my arm, the scar left by the dogman years earlier. The chamber fell silent. The lights shifted. The figures remained motionless, watching, waiting. I forced myself to speak. Who are you? For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the answer came. We are the ones your people forgot. The words carried no anger, no hatred, only sadness, ancient sadness, as though they had watched humanity for a very long time. I asked what they wanted. The response came immediately. To warn you. The ground beneath the chamber trembled. The figures turned away from me, toward a darkness deeper within the cavern. Something moved below, something vast. Even from that distance I could feel it, a presence, old, hungry, wrong. The voice returned. The fractures are opening again. The guardians know, the witches know, now you know. The chamber shook harder. A low roar echoed from somewhere beneath us. Not an animal, not anything I recognized. The lights began disappearing one by one. The figures stepped backwards into the darkness. I shouted for answers, but they were already gone. Within moments, the chamber stood empty. Only silence remained. I switched on my torch and swept it across the stone floor, and that's when I saw the message, carved deep into the rock. Old, very old. 3 simple words. They are coming. I don't know who carved those words. I don't know what lives beneath those hills. And I don't know whether the hidden people are friends, enemies, or something in between. But I do know one thing. The legends were never just stories. Something has been watching from beneath the Isle of Mann for centuries. And now, It knows we've started looking back,